Castle does. Got some Subnautica. So this is getting a little bit closer to the release of the game, and the stress starts to add up a little bit more, the hecticness. Making sure that fully populating these areas when there's like a million caves everywhere. The amount of like nooks and crannies that I had to fill in was starting to mount up, and I was starting to get kind of like worried that I wasn't going to be able to get everything in place. Whew, man, like we only have so much time left. Get all these entities working, get them all in place, get everything set up, figure out what we're going to be doing, explain what's going on to the other designers so that they have an idea of the new rules that I'm applying to these spawn points. Ultimately, my goal ended up being was to take the system that we had already put in place. God, I hope I haven't already explained this. It was to take the system that we had already had in place and make a couple key differences. Make sure that all of the spawn points always spawn something. That's important because when you play a game, it's like going to a casino. Can you imagine if you want to go to a casino and there's no slot machines? That's what you came there for. Or the way the world was before, it was like going to a casino and there's no slot machines. Now each of the limestone veins right now are basically like a slot machine. You don't know what you're gonna get. You can get one of 4 items, probably one of 3 items. Although I think I've seen silicone drop from it. Anyway, I started trying to get more of the spawn points like out to the surrounding areas. But as the starting area, the 4 batches that surrounded the starting area were in good shape, there was still a lot of like small things. Like I'm still working on one of the areas that was further down and around on the outer edge, and trying to follow the new rules that I had set up. So these new rules for the spawning is very simple. I wanted to get more distributed versions of the spawn points. So I'm using the spawn point names as more of something that's a literal, like at the bottom of a cliff wall, these go here. See, before what we were doing was something that I don't feel really works that well, and we're separating each and every one of these areas into sort of categories. So like if there's an area with plateaus, then that place is plateaus, and the only spawn point you place within plateaus is plateau spawn points. You don't have any variance. And then we use a dynamic spawning system to determine what would spawn in plateaus area. But to me, it doesn't make sense to the player because the player doesn't know what each of these areas are. In fact, even as a designer, I could probably debate to somebody whether or not an area is plateaus or if it's if there's rolling hills on top of it. It could be dunes. So where's the thing? Like, what if the dune has a plateau in it? So, and I realized that to the person who designs the area, it might feel pretty straightforward. Oh, that area is this, but to the player and to other designers, eh, you know, the only times where it really ends up making sense is like caves. Obviously, it's a cave. You can't argue that. So I want the spawn points to be more. I want the name of the spawn point to be the description of where it belongs, which is something that doesn't quite isn't in place yet, and will be after as of will be like one of the next things that I'm gonna try and work on is changing the names of the spawn points to be descriptive of exactly where they go. Cliff, wall, bottom. I obviously will have to have more thought into it because naming these spawn points and getting it right is going to be tough to get Like, these are the only ones that we really need. But there are other things too. Certain minerals only spawn on the ceilings of caves. That was one of the things that I had to decide to do. As far as these are concerned, that's just a cave spawn. But now you have to be aware of the fact that in the grassy plateaus biome, calcite is a stalactite and only spawns on the ceiling. See? So there's gonna have to I want to go through and I want to organize the spawning so that it's more descriptive within the name of the spawn, exactly how the spawn is being used and where it's going to be used. And I want to kind of move away from this idea of mini biomes, which shouldn't be too bad. So, like, this is rock wall. I'm placing rock face. Rock face goes on rock faces. Before, rock face was actually a mini biome where only rock face can be placed. So, I guess you can see where I'm going with that. I mean, and there is some spots where it ends up just being that way. Cave, for example, is always cave. There wasn't any mini biomes in caves. Of course, I'm using mini biomes as I don't know, but that's pretty much it. So grassy plateaus will be cave spawn ceiling, cave ceiling, and then there might be a cave wall, and then there might be a cave floor. Some biomes, some areas will have cave wall, some will have cave floor. It really depends on what kind of things we want spawning there. Yep. So I'm working on all the areas that surround the first 4 batches, which are pretty decent amount of space, but um, making these decisions, organizing these decisions, making sure that the the file that I've been editing uh, to work correctly with this is functioning correctly, not introducing new bugs. Hearing a lot of the rest of the team, everything starts happening at once, and that ends up becoming stressful just because of the fact that everybody that you're talking to is also under a lot of stress, and everybody sort of bouncing back and forth. Oh, la la la! I got 20 guys talking to me. I got 20. I need to have these 4 things working correctly. It adds up quick. In a way, I'm kind of glad that I'm working remotely because it's nothing quite like that feeling when you're in the offices. Because releasing a game is insanity. I don't care how small a project is. That is some stressful stuff. Oy. Something that I highly recommend at least once, and just so you can talk about it. But I've been through it so many times, and I'll tell you, it's never a pretty sight. This was relatively straightforward, though. I knew what I needed to get done. I had the goal, and it turned out okay. But there have been times where it was just like, holy shit, ah! uh, yeah, look at all these spawn points. Everything's going in place. Getting stalkers in there. The next change that I'm after this that I want to the next change after this is to make sure that the spawn points are more specific to each thing. Like limestone can spawn one of 3 things. I want to make sure that there's specific things can spawn at a specific node. So like instead of limestone, it'll be zinc. There'll be a zinc node that you click on. You'll be able to see zinc from far away and know that it's zinc. There's no slot machine. The slot machine happens at the load of the batch rather than when the player walks up to it. Although, I mean, there's always something to be said for having a limestone that can spawn different stuff. Anyway, thank you for watching, and stay tuned because it just keeps getting crazier.